No college football fan is ever satisfied with exactly how everything plays out with a season unless you happen to be the national championship team. However, I would argue that even though my Miami Hurricanes absolutely crumbled down the stretch, that this college football season and this 12-team playoff was absolutely a success for college football. Now, granted, there's a lot of things about the college football landscape that I'm not a huge fan of. I like that players are being able to use their name, image, and likeness, but it feels like something just still needs to be fixed on that whole front. I like that there was a playoff, but I feel like there was probably four too many teams in it. I think an 8-team playoff would work better. However, that being said, money rules the day, and we know that. And so, what we have, at least I would argue, is significantly better than what we used to have. And I go back even to days before the BCS when you would just literally have writers voting on who the best team was, even if you have multiple teams. And then the BCS, where it was computers who picked who went into a championship game. But even up to more recent times, where it just felt like sometimes teams would make it in solely based off of the conference they were in or solely based off of the pedigree of what their team had done in previous seasons. Maybe we've started to strike a good balance here where there is a guarantee that who everyone has the consensus top couple of teams make it in, but as in essence we end up with a couple of wild card teams in that maybe some people would say don't deserve it, but in the broader scheme of things also gives a better picture of who is playing best at the end of the season among the top teams in football. And similar to the way in the NFL playoffs, everyone thought that the NFC North was the dominant division, but when the playoff games hit, they all disappeared. Same thing kind of happened with the SEC this year. And it certainly makes you wonder that if you were to go back over many years with a 12-team playoff, you can almost be certain that you would have different national champions than who is officially on the record book. I do think that this will help getting and encouraging teams that are close but not quite there to keep pursuing. I don't really see there being this drastic change where teams are going to be like, oh, I don't feel like I can get in. I think a lot of teams realize that now. Okay, if we can put together a solid season, even if we have one good loss and maybe even one bad loss, we still have a chance. Now, some of you are not going to like that. Some of you are not going to like simply having a champion who is not undefeated. And there's probably some of you out there who would say, hey, if every team has at least one loss, then no one deserves to be the champion. But again, we're talking in reality here. There's going to be a champion, and we're probably past the point where requiring teams to be undefeated is the best way to determine who the best team is. And I think over the long haul, it's always kind of been understood that a loss in August or September is not as bad as a loss in December or January. And I think this continues with that trend where teams that maybe struggle a little bit earlier in the season but can put everything together and can really make a nice run in the playoff. And again, not everyone's going to like this, but I would say compared to what we have had in the past, either just having sports writers vote on a champion or having computers pick who the two best teams were, or even up until recently just having the four top teams in, I feel like we're getting closer to what it is. But I know not all of you are going to like this setup. So tell me below, do you like it? Do you hate it? Or what changes would you make? I'd be in favor of the 8-team playoff. But again, I know that we're not going to go anywhere that doesn't involve significant negotiations because there's so much money on the line and it's just so important to all of these teams here. You can pick on whether or not you think you should have to be in a conference, whether Notre Dame should be able to get in. Not being a conference champion, you could argue about all these different things. But I would still say if you just put it in a vacuum, this versus the BCS or this 12-team playoff versus sports writers picking who it is, at least it was played out on the field. And with that, I give my seal of approval, and let's see what improvements come in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead.